Wildcard line, you're on the air. Hi.
How you doing, Art?
All right, sir.
I'm calling, listening to you from 105.1 in Las Vegas.
You bet. KVBC. Yes, Tony.
One day back in 1984, I was getting drowsy, so I decided to take a nap.
Right.
After several hours, I awoke at about 12 o'clock at night. It was a particularly dark and creepy half-lit moon night. Mm-hmm. I had my window cracked when a noise rustling in the leaves drew my attention. I proceeded to look out of my window for a few minutes and saw nothing in the mostly blackened outdoors. I decided to go back to sleep, but for some reason I couldn't, and that's when I heard the fluttering kind of sound. That's when I decided to go outside and see what it was.
A fluttering kind of sound? You mean like a bird or something?
Yes, but it was in the leaves.
Okay.
Carefully, that is, so I grabbed a butcher knife. Creeping down my stairs to the side door of our third-story house, I rounded the corner to the garage expecting a prowler to pop out from one of the many oak trees.
And having to use your butcher knife.
That's right. I continued onward, and I saw with the aid of a neighbor's dim patio light a thin 5-foot-high body of some kind with a gigantic head scurry from behind one tree onto the next tree. It went behind this tree as well.
Let's slow this one up a little bit. A body with a gigantic head flitting between trees?
Yeah, it was scurrying.
Scurrying.
It was kind of scurrying.
All right.
And it went from behind one tree onto the next tree, and it was behind this tree as well. Not getting a great look at it, I proceeded towards the tree with my butcher's knife. When I got to the oak tree, I prepared for the worst, knowing whatever it was had to be there according to all the laws of physics.
Right.
So I jumped past the tree, and there was nothing there. Whatever it was, it had disappeared. Needless to say, I got no sleep that night.
What do you think it was? What do you think you had encountered?
Possibly a demonic entity. When I was looking at it, it was backlit as well. But it looked like it was completely black, whatever it was.
Well, I'm glad for you that you didn't have to actually plunge a butcher knife into a demonic entity.
Well, that's not the end of the story.
Oh.
There's one more quick clincher.
Yes?
3 days later, I found a cat of mine that had been missing.
Right.
And it was completely degutted.
Oh. It was degutted.
Completely degutted. And it had a razor-sharp cut down right the center of it, and it had been completely degutted.
You're sure that in some sort of psychotic, unaware, unconscious moment, you're sure you didn't degut your own cat, right?
I'm absolutely sure of that.
And you connect the two events?
I kind of do and kind of don't, but you never know.
You never know, and horrible as it was to have a degutted cat, better the little feline than yourself, eh?
Exactly.
Could have found you out there, degutted.
You got it.
Yeah. All right, sir, thank you very much.
Thank you.
East of the Rockies, you are on the air. Good morning.
Hi, Art.
Hi there, where are you?
I'm in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. My name is Joe.
Louisiana, as a general rule, is a very haunted place, and with many haunted cities, isn't it?
Oh, yes, indeed.
Mm-hmm.
The Myrtles Plantation is really one of the most haunted houses in America. And my wife and I wanted to vacation there one year, but we really didn't have the money.
You wanted to go on vacation there?
Oh, yeah. Many people stay in the Myrtles Plantation overnight just to see if they can get a glimpse of a ghost.
Why, just out of curiosity, why do you think somebody would pay good money to get the you-know-what scared out of them?
Human nature?
Yeah, it's some sort of comment on human nature, isn't it? Well, go ahead.
All right. The house that my mother lives in was built in 1974, the year that I was born. And when I was a small child, see, my sisters and my brother, they all told me this. When I was a small child, I had an imaginary friend that I called Sam, and I described him as a tall man wearing all black clothes with a black broad-brimmed hat and long black hair.
May I stop you and ask a question?
Sure.
I've heard so many stories about children that had imaginary friends. I never had one, and I've always wanted to ask, your imaginary friend, could you see your friend? Was your friend an invisible friend, and you just had this mental image of your friend? Did your friend talk to you? What kind of relationship was it?
Well, I was so young that I really don't remember. I was about 3 or 4, and I was telling my brother and sisters about this, and come to find out, a couple of years after that, after I hadn't talked to him or talked about him or anything, my sisters and my brother, my parents, and a couple of friends were sitting in the living room, and this man, just as I described, my imaginary friend, nobody saw him appear, but he started walking through the living room in front of everyone and started walking down the hall. Well, my dad gets up to go look, to see who's this man that's walking in the house, figuring it to be, a burglar or, someone that just was on drugs or something. When he got to the hall, the man wasn't there. Now, this happened 8 times in front of at least 3 people each time. And he's never done anything that harmed the family or anything. But my family all called him Sam because he was exactly as I had described my imaginary friend Sam. Now, my wife, when she met me, she's a sensitive, and when she met me, she knew that something was in the house. And I haven't seen Sam since I was about 14, 15 years old.
Yes.
And she, when I called her tonight to say that you were doing this show, and for her to listen, she told me that she saw him go around the corner just the other day, just walking. Like when you see someone go around the corner, just catch the edge of them.
Of course, out of the corner of your eye, sort of peripheral vision.
And she walked around the corner, and he wasn't there. And she didn't mention this to me until I talked to her tonight. And I wish she had, because I'd like to know what's going on.
Well, who knows? Maybe the next time you see Sam, it's going to be time for you to go.
Yeah, maybe. Also, my sister, one of my sisters, she says, she relates a story to me about waking up in the middle of the night and seeing, like, a Native American woman standing at the end of her bed that disappeared.
Oh.
And that happened to her, she told me, 3 or 4 times in that house. Well, when she moved to Germany, she was in the Army, and she moved to Germany, was stationed in Stuttgart. She said that she saw the same Indian woman. And I talked to her about 6 months ago. And she told me that she has seen this Indian woman everywhere she's gone.
Not good.
So she thinks it's probably a guardian spirit.
That may well be, and it may be that Sam is yours. Anyway, if you see Sam again, we're going to want to know about it.
All righty.
All right? Take care. I don't know about the black clothes. Meet Joe Black, huh? Strange. Perhaps there are entities that remain with us all our lives, guide us through, and then when the time comes, take us out. West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hi.
Yeah, hi, Art. How are you doing?
Well, it's starting out a little strange tonight.
Well, you asked for it.
Yeah, you're right, I did.
Well, anyway, I'm listening to you on 105.1 in Vegas.
Yes, sir, KVBC.
Well, this story, I'm originally from Hawaii, and there's a whole bunch of stars. As you well know, Hawaii's a hot spot for things like
I
this.
do know that, yes.
Yeah. And this happened while I was a teenager back in the early 70s, and we were visiting family from the island of Kauai, which happens to be the oldest island in the chain of islands out in Hawaii.
Kauai, yes.
And one of the spookiest. Well, as a child growing up, I would hear tons of stories from families, about this sort of thing. And it'll always happen in the evenings, and we'll get scared, and the next day when daylight's out, we're not scared anymore. Well, a bunch of our cousins my brother and cousins and one friend. There was 5 of us in the car that evening, traveling, just cruising around the island. And back in the 70s, there weren't many street lights. There's not many still till today, but there's a lot more today.
Right.
And we decided to go out and have some fun because, you know, we says, hey, let's go call the ghost. One of the things they tell us in Hawaii that you never do is whistle in the nighttime. It's
whistle?
Like calling the spirits. You never do that. So we said, you know.
So
hey,
that's what you were going to do.
And that's exactly what we were going to do.
Figures.
And we says, hey, let's go down, and the place is called Spouting Horn.
Spouting Horn.
And it's like the blowhole where the waves that come in. It goes up underneath the lava rock, and it blows.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes, I've seen it.
Okay. Oh, great. Okay. And anyway, it was there, and it was like a dead-end street. You know, you go up, and then there's cane fields around there. And so we went to the very end, and we were out there whistling, calling the ghost. Say, oh, here, come here, ghost. Here, ghost.
You mean, well, do the whistle.
Yeah. Come on, ghost, you know.
Like you were calling a dog.
Like a dog.
Yeah.
Because it said don't whistle, and we said, that's just going to happen. So we have this one cousin of ours. He's a little skinny guy, and he likes to scare people all the time, so we thought we'd play a joke on him. And we told him, now that night we didn't have much moonlight, but you could still see, silhouettes. So there was some moon, obviously. And we told him, he says, okay, you know, there's a big old tree over there by the cane field. If you walk to there and come back to the car, we'll give you a quarter. And so he's thinking, well, I know what these guys are going to do, man. They're going to dig out on me. So he says, okay, I'll do that. So he says, okay, go. So he walked. He disappeared. We couldn't see him. So we all jumped in the car and we took off. We went down the street. We're laughing, you know. We're going down the street. So I turn around to see, you know, what he's doing, you know, if I could see my cousin or what's going on. Maybe he's running down after us.
Sure.
And I see, like, he's crouching over, standing position, but he's crouching over. So I'm laughing. He says, oh, look at him. What, you know, what's he doing? And then my brother turns around and says, I don't know what he's doing. So we had a ball. We went down, and we drove like about a mile to the bottom of the hill towards the hotels, or that one hotel out in that area. And so we parked, and we laughed, and we were talking, and we're saying how funny it is, how he likes to scare people, and on and on. And so we finally decided, you know what, it's been a few minutes, let's go get him. The gag's over, you know, let's just go get him and get out of here. You know,
sure.
We had our laugh. But the driver cousin of mine, he totally acted strange. And when we said, okay, let's go get him, Henry, let's go up and get him. And he just, you know, laughed in a strange voice and says, no, we'll wait some more. So we sort of chuckled a little bit and said, okay, we'll go along with him. Well, we asked him to drive up a couple of times, and when it came to the third time, it was really weird. You know, this isn't like our cousin talking strange voice. Keep on saying no, let him walk down to us. So my brother, being the oldest in the car at that time, says, well, look, if you're not going to turn around and get him, I'll kick you out of the car. I'll drive the car up. We'll get him. You walk home.
Hear you.
So then he agreed, okay, we'll go get him. So we're going back up the road, and as we get closer to the end, we decided to turn the lights off to creep up on him. We shut the radio down, but we couldn't see him. So we sort of made the corner, and we were at the ledge, and you know, the windows are down, of course, and we hear this Hawaiian chanting sort of music. No instruments to it. And I know you know the music I'm talking about.
I of course I do. I've got about less than a minute.
Okay. Well, anyway, we get there. We find him sitting on the end. And so he's crying his heart out, you know, and we're sort of getting scared now. And we're saying, you know, come on, let's go, you know. My brother was a football star, you know, in Hawaii at that time. And he said, let's go, let's get out of here. You know, joke's over. So he tried to lift him. He couldn't lift him. And my cousin, like I said, small, skinny guy as he was, we couldn't lift him. Well, when he finally got him in the car, we couldn't talk to him. Well, what we had to do to get him in the car is, I don't know if you're familiar with what the parents used to tell us then. If you have trouble, you swear and you urinate or whatever. Well, I try to do that when you're afraid. But we're swearing. We finally get him free. We're going down the hill, and we're trying to talk to him. He can't answer us, and we question why was he bending over and
real quick now.
Okay. Well, as it turned out, he said he walked halfway across the road, sat down, and as we ran towards the car, he tried to get up to go towards us.
Yes.
Something held him down.
Oh, and that's why you couldn't lift him.
We couldn't see him, but we seen the crotch and we seen the spirit. Well, after this was all over, we went to visit our grandmother the next day because she's into this sort of stuff.
And very quickly.
Okay, and she's seen the spirit behind him. Until today, that spirit still haunts him. He has to wear this stuff that my grandmother gave him.
Wow. All right. From Hawaii, where lots of that kind of stuff happens. This comes from Tim in Phoenix, Arizona. Art, a contribution to your program. This experience took place 20 years ago, and I swear I get goosebumps when recalling this incident to this day. It was the summer of '81. I was a typical 17-year-old. I remember that. I'd sneak out after my parents were asleep. I remember that. And drive around with my friends looking for girls, of course. Not that we would have had the slightest idea what to do with them. A very slim chance that they would have given us a time of day, but I digress. After getting back home at about 3 a.m., I got out of my friend's car in front of my parents' house, waved goodbye to my buddies, turned around to head towards the front doors. I looked around. I was quite startled to see a man standing in the street between me and my parents' driveway. He was backlit by the street light behind him, so I couldn't clearly make out any features. I could, though, discern that he appeared to be wearing a long trench coat and a stovepipe hat. Additionally, he was standing next to an older-style bicycle. This is an extremely odd clothing choice, considering this took place in the summer heat of Phoenix. Now, bear in mind that we had just driven up the street directly over the spot where he was standing, and he was not there. I was scared because I assumed that anyone out this late, or early in the morning, as you look at it, it was most likely up to no good one way or the other, hypocrisy noted, and quite frankly, I had a bad feeling. In an attempt to ascertain his intentions, I asked him, "Can I help you?" No answer. I repeated, "Can I help you?" No answer. He just stood there. Kind of cocked his head to one side as if trying to figure out me as well. At this point, I'd had about enough, and I began to look around for something to defend myself with. Unfortunately, he stood directly in my path. I couldn't get to my parents' house with no alternative. I began walking toward him with my hand out as if to shake his hand in a friendly gesture. I got within a few feet of him before breaking into a full sprint, and I simply ran right past him. And I noted that as I did, it was very, very cold as I ran past. I didn't look back. Now, the next morning, my neighbor, who worked the graveyard shift, no pun intended, poked his head over the fence to ask me, "What was that all about in your driveway early this morning?" While I was somewhat relieved to discover that somebody could corroborate the experience, I was deeply troubled by what he said next. He said, "I know you're going to think I'm crazy, but after you took off running, that man got on his bike, pedaled a few yards, and simply vanished." Well, my neighbor has been known to take a drink every now and then. The possibility of his being sincere and sober resulted in many a sleepless night. Wildcard line, you're on the air. Hello.
Hello, Art. How are you this morning?
Or
should I say this evening? This is Patrick in Fairfield, California, an old Air Force brat myself.
Yes, sir.
Just want to first of all give you all my best wishes to you and your family. I hope that whole thing gets worked out too.
Oh, it will.
Yeah. I wanted to also tell everybody that we have a new Usenet group that's just been it's 2 weeks old, I think, called ALT Binaries Paranormal. So anybody with good ghost pictures, we've got lots of great orb pictures up there and stuff. And
I've been collecting them over the years now. I've got some really incredible photographs on my site.
It's an interesting phenomenon. I certainly can't say what the heck it is, but
one wonders why so many times the camera catches what the eye does not. That's really strange. Anyway, do you have a story?
Yes. I wanted to relate one of my many ghost stories that I share with my friends on Alt Folklore Ghost Stories. Another great group. It's about an experience I had while I was working towards my degree in parapsychology at the sleep lab at Sac State in Sacramento. And we were doing an experiment this particular night. We were mapping the stages of sleep using Kirlian photography.
Right.
It was eventually written up in the Journal for the Psychophysiological Study of Sleep.
So in other words, the Kirlian image changes with the state of sleep?
Changes
that's something.
Not only through the REM period, but between REM and non-REM.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah, it was the first time it was ever done. Unfortunately, it was a pilot program. We didn't have much funding, and what it required was that my assistant Mike stay inside the anechoic chamber with the sleeping subject.
Right.
And he had to advance the film manually.
Right.
In between exposures when I would cue him with a little light from the experimental room.
Gotcha.
And this particular night, it was about 4 o'clock in the morning, and I could actually hear two people snoring over the intercom. Mike had fallen asleep himself.
Bad.
I was wondering how the heck I was going to get him awake without waking up the other person.
Yeah.
But we'd already gotten some pretty good exposures that night. But all of a sudden, I hear this movement over the intercom, and Mike uttering this low curse. And I was thinking to myself, oh, geez, there goes the entire night. You know, if he ends up waking up the person
yes.
prematurely.
Sure, ruining the experiment.
Exactly. And as it turned out, it was going to be ruined anyway, because he yelled out over the intercom my name, Pat, and he goes, my God, you won't believe this. She's walked right through me. And I hear the heavy door of the chamber being opened, and Mike's footsteps coming around the corner to the experimental room. And he goes, look at that. And he's grabbing my arm with about 500 pounds of pressure. And there in the wall from the experimental room into the chamber comes this kind of misty-looking stuff. And by the time it was halfway through the wall, just past the EEG, the old Grass Model 6 EEG we were using, was kind of it solidified into the apparition of I don't know, about a 65-year-old woman wearing a flower print dress, and she was just like floating with about ankle length down to the floor. You couldn't see her feet, and she just kind of floated through the very narrow, long experimental room. And I looked over at him, but both of our jaws were dropped, the hair on the back of our necks were just sticking up. I've got goosebumps.
Yeah, like mine is now. Oh my God!
I mean, it was an incredible sight, and so when she passed through the shelving on the left-hand side where we store all the EEG paper, just passed through as if it were nothing, and she never looked over at us or anything. But we immediately went around over to the left where there's another hallway. It was kind of a big U-shaped complex on the base floor of the psychology building, and we were expecting her to come through what would be one of the small little experimental rooms next to our experimental room, right, and then come out into the hallway. And she never did. So we went back around, and sure enough, there she goes, floating back into the sleep chamber, and then we indeed went over to the right-hand corridor where she came through the anechoic chamber and disappeared out the outside wall.
Did the Kirlian photography that you were doing happen to catch any of this?
Actually, unless there was an exposure being made during that moment, we wouldn't have known.
Do you think, is it reasonable to ask you whether you think the kind of experimentation you were doing, monitoring sleep, Kirlian photography, something very unusual, might have, in effect, opened a door that allowed all of this to occur, or what's your sense of it?
Well, she showed herself a second time, Art, but the experimental parameters during that time were a very traditional sleep type of experiment, wherein we were measuring the temporal regressive reference of dreams dependent upon the effect of alcohol and body temperature.
Yeah, but it may be that the very study of that sort of unconscious time...
Absolutely. I would have to tend to agree with you on that, yeah.
I appreciate the call.
Hey, thank you, Art.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
I could not have handled that. Not at all. From the high desert, this is Ghost to Ghost AM.